Welcome to I Pick Passion and Funny. Today's episode is part one of a powerful, layered convo with comedian J.B. Ball. We dove into everything from his comedy journey to the deep stuff, identity, politics, and the role of unity in today's world. Okay, welcome to the show, JB. How are you?
I am good. How you doing?
Good. Doing really good. Okay, so I usually like to start off the show with a icebreaker. It's a game called Hella Awkward. Super fun. So what I'll do is I'll give you the categories. You let me know which one you want to do. And then I'll give you the question. Of course, you give me the answer. Okay?
All right.
All right, so we have real talk, we have dating, relationships, and we have sex.
That's one topic or those are the
Those
topics?
are the topics.
Oh, okay. I was just like, okay. What are we saying again? Dating, relationships, or sex?
Real talk, dating, sex, relationships.
Oh, let's do real talk. Let's do real talk.
Okay, all right. Okay, so what's your favorite city in the world and why?
Honolulu, Hawaii. It's my favorite place on earth because it's the only place I've ever been that you can feel.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I've pretty much been to every major city in the US. And while you can feel them, I don't know that any of them are necessarily a good feeling, right? Like I think you can feel more of the struggle in certain cities that you go to. It's not that you don't want to be there or that you don't identify with people there,
Agreed.
but there is something to being in Hawaii, feeling the sun under those circumstances, feeling the humidity under those circumstances. Just I don't know, it's so strange. It's almost like you feel like more in tune to your body. You kind of feel more in tune to the universe. It feels like life is more life there as opposed to life is like work-life balance. Does that make sense? It's none of my dreams are associated with that place.
That's
None of
interesting.
my almost zero of my work is associated with that place, right? So it feels like a place to exclusively just exist and to be. And then you find yourself, I feel like, spending more time doing things that consciously interest you,
Okay.
right? And again, I guess I'm only speaking for myself, but that's what that place does for me.
I
You know,
love
when
that.
I'm there, I'm down to do any hike. I'm down to get in the water for almost any reason. I'm down to walk up any hill. I'm down to eat almost any food. Like it just everything about it is sort of just like, yeah, let's experience it.
I love that.
And I don't know that another city causes me to feel that,
Okay.
you know? So
Yeah.
there's something to there's a power to it. I try to go to Hawaii literally every year
Wow.
because it's just I don't know another place like it. It's not to say that they don't exist, but for some reason that place speaks to me, so I go.
Love that. I've never been to Hawaii, so now I'm gonna have to check it out. And when I
Yeah.
do, then I'm gonna go back to this conversation.
For sure. Like, don't get me wrong, there are commercial parts of Hawaii that can feel vaguely familiar, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be in Honolulu because that's the most touristy area.
Okay.
And I always do say, like, if you're going to go to Honolulu the first time to get your bearings. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, through meeting people and reading things and like just the hearsay, you're going to figure out where you would want to go next
Okay.
as far as the Hawaiian Islands are concerned, right? But I do think it's smart to start with the touristy part because you kind of get this education on like, okay, so this is what this place is overall. Now I know where I want to direct my interests.
Okay. I love
So
that.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, I would
exciting.
recommend everybody go there. It's
That's
great.
amazing.
It's unreal. There's a program there. I don't know what the program was called, but I thought it was so interesting. So the first time I went to Hawaii, I was in college and I was playing in a basketball tournament there. So we got to, this great trip, like when you're in like 21. It was incredible, right? But one of the things I really remember was like the homeless problem was such a huge deal there. They were everywhere, right? And I'm talking like professional homeless people. These are people who like moved here and can sort of like make a career out of being unhoused, right? Like as an example, there was a guy this white dude, he just lived on the beach, but his skin was so tan. He was like, we were pretty much the same skin color, but you can tell he was a white person, right? But his whole existence was he had like 7 parrots and he would just stand with them like this and they would just like line his shoulders and arms. And then he would just charge people to take pictures with him. And that was his entire income. And he could live on the beach in Hawaii every day. He could still afford to get whatever food or whatever he needed. But he was technically not a like resident. He was still a homeless person. He could just live at the beach.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of stuff like that when I went, I don't know, what was it? Like probably 17 years ago, right? So then I go again 2 years ago. That's the first time I've been since, was 2 years ago. No homeless people in sight. And I talked to my Uber driver about that. I said, what happened with that? Because first time I came, I saw so much of that.
Yeah.
And he said Barack Obama, when he was in office, instituted this plan where basically there is an allotted area on the island designated for the homeless people, where like they built up some stuff for them, like this whole like ecosystem of this place where they can live and survive. And the deal was basically as long as you upkeep it, it's yours. You don't got to spend any money, you don't got to do anything, but we mapped out an area for you. As long as you're willing to take care of it, it is yours. And it worked so well, according to this guy, that they actually brought more homeless people from mainland America to Hawaii to also live in this area.
Wow.
So I just thought it was such an interesting project. I had never heard about it. I thought that's such a cool thing
It is.
happened like under his administration. I was like, that's really cool. I love that that worked out. And I don't know that that could work in every city. Like that might be a very circumstantial thing about Hawaii. You know, I've been in other places that have a homeless problem, and I go, I don't know if you give them a section of the city, it's really going to work out. But like
Yeah.
in Hawaii, they figured something out there. There's something really cool about that.
Yeah, because I was getting ready to say that's something that I believe they should implement other places. Because I mean, there are other cities for
Yeah.
sure that have a problem with
I'd
homelessness.
love to see them attempt it
Yeah.
for sure. I know so little about the homeless problem and how to combat it that like I get hesitant to offer suggestions because I go like, listen, man, you do this for a living. Let me not step on your shoes. I'm sure you've considered it.
Right.
Um, and I've seen like little variations of some aspects of that in certain cities, but to that extent, I've never seen. Maybe they've tried it. Maybe it just didn't work. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
very cool concept.
That's amazing. Wow.
Mhm.
But thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, we're going to go back. Who was young JB Ball? Like, what were you like growing up? Were you always funny? Like, tell me about your origin story.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a real mixed pot. The easiest way to sum me up was I was a jack of all trades, master of none. That's to a T. That's who I was as a kid. My dad got me a ton of experience in such a wide variety of things from such a young age that I sort of felt like there was almost no place that I wouldn't know how to fit in,
Okay.
but I wasn't necessarily like the elite person at any of those places. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I was very good at sports, like very good. Like I had a basketball scholarship the whole nine. I probably picked the wrong sport. Like I probably could have gotten a scholarship in something else had I focused on that instead of basketball, right? But what ended up happening by doing that, like I grew up, I played hockey, I played basketball, I played baseball, I did track and field, I was in gifted, I did these trips to like this place called the Museum of Science and Industry. It's called Mosey back in Tampa. Like I was in such an eclectic group of things. The byproduct unintentionally, I think, was I figured out how to relate to so many different kinds of people. You see what I'm saying? So like there were so many different cultures involved in each of those different things. There are cultures to those cultures. You know what I mean? Where like there is baseball culture outside of there is like racial culture.
Yeah.
So like when these races are are put into baseball culture, now we've got two things coinciding, right? And
Absolutely.
I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that. And I think I got a lot of experience with that early on. And then you'll see that come out, I think, in my comedy because a lot of what I'm saying, I'm speaking as a black male in this country, but I'm speaking from a place of, hey man, I've been over here and I've talked to these people and I've been around these people and I've heard their concerns, but I'm aware of this side of things. And so I'm coming from a place of more empathy and grace and acceptance while still keeping it like edgy and fun. Right. So my sense of where boundaries are a little different than I think most people in comedy. And I think that's what allows me to kind of stand out with my particular style,
Oh,
you know?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I think the origin story is my dad kept me in such an eclectic group of experiences of things to do that it ended up molding this like, it's really corny, but if you think Captain Planet, where it's just like every different race of person working together to be a thing. Like he sort of molded a version of that, but I like telling dick jokes. You know what I mean? So it's just that's kind of what it is, you know? Like I grew up I was always funny. I was always an athlete, but I was not the love interest. I was never that guy. I was always the funny friend, you know? I was never the cool kid. I was just so funny you'd want me around, right? So I was always like adjacent to the major tropes. Like I wasn't the designated any of those things. Like I think to a degree, the only thing that kept me from necessarily like being bullied was the fact that I was one of the better athletes and I was funny. And those two things kind of kept me safe from all of like, I guess the negatives that could happen growing up, you know, like the stereotypical things that other people would run into. I kind of like got to avoid those via those skills. So,
Yeah.
I was fortunate in that way, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty cool. Well, shout out to your dad for.
Oh, my dad's great. This is how progressive my dad was. So I was raised by my dad, not my mom,
Okay.
right? And my mom's so great. Like my mom and I became very close in adulthood because once I reached adulthood, I was able to get a better understanding of who she was as a person.
Absolutely.
And because I understand that person, like I don't feel like I was wronged in any kind of way. I just understand who she was at that time in her life relative to everything. I get it. And my dad did such a great job. I never felt like I wanted. Like kudos to my dad. But this is how cool, how progressive he was at the time. He's a single father with a little boy. He's never had a little boy before. And in I'm born in 87. I want to say early 90s, he went to a child psychologist and just ask for advice on like, please explain to me what am I supposed to do with this kid so that I don't mess him up? Like, what is the
Wow.
most advantageous things for his development? And that's where me participating in all those things came from
That's
because the
amazing.
psychologist had suggested you want to get him as involved in as many things as possible because one, it's gonna keep him occupied. Two, it's going to keep him stimulated. Three, he's going to get social skills. And then four, he's going to gain perspective.
Yeah.
Right. And the perspective is the major one for me. I think a lot of the times, the things I'm speaking towards or the way I'm speaking about them is all informed by, hey, I have been or know somebody on the other side of this. So I think it's wiser to say it this way versus this way.
Yeah.
Like, I understand this emotion and this feeling, but I think the best way to get these people also on your side is to approach it this way. You may feel this, but this is what gets you what you want. And doing it this way may not feel as satisfying until you see the result. And then you realize, oh, that got me the thing that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so I think like I have a lot to be grateful for in relation to that psychologist, but then also to my dad for having the presence of mind at a time where like going to the psychologist was not a celebrated thing.
Yes.
You know, a single man who's in control and has some level of power to his life, going to someone asking for help was not a popular thing. It was not a celebrated thing. But
Absolutely.
he had the wherewithal and the confidence to seek that out. And I would like to think that I am doing him proud. So yeah. That's I think there's something to that.
I believe you are doing him very proud. I do believe that. That's.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see. The book's not finished being written. I might mess this up on the back nine. But yeah, the hot start,
Not
man. He
over
really
yet.
came out the gate strong. And then, oh, man.
Right. All goes left real quick.
Yeah, 1 minute he's 10 years ago Kanye, and the next minute he's this Kanye. And you're like, oh boy.
Right. Oh, look.
This is not what I thought I signed up for.
Exactly. Right. But yeah, that was amazing.
I got this theory. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say I've got this theory that Trump voters are like early Kanye fans, where like they signed on for something that they didn't realize was gonna go this way.
Oh, they absolutely did not realize that.
And I think they're too prideful to back up and go like, "Hey, man, I didn't know it was gonna be all this. My bad, dude. My bad."
Oh my God. It's so funny because I was just kind of having this conversation. Matter of fact, we were talking about it at work. Yeah. At work, ironically. And because it's just, like I said, that's a whole nother conversation that
of course.
That we won't get into
it's
that.
Tough to tackle.
We won't get into that on here.
It's very tough to tackle. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing I do. I get nervous when I'm listening because I'll still listen to early Kanye because I go like, oh no, that one was still fine. Yeah. That's when he was still, that was okay. That's like listening to Michael Jackson, like PYT. He was still fine then.
Oh yeah.
That wasn't the issue.
Man.
So if somebody's driving by and they see me like listening to Kanye and they give me a look, I'll be like, no. This is the first album. This is a totally different era. First album.
Fire when he first came out.
He had a hot decade.
Yeah. Honestly, I have to say, after his mom passed away, that's when I think it all went south for him. That's what I really.
And here's what I'll say. I don't even think he was making bad work then.
Yeah.
But I think that's just when we started seeing the turn. You know, but still those early, like, because I think his mom passes away around 808s and Heartbreaks, I think.
I think so,
if it's not there, it's right after there. I just don't remember which came first. But I would argue like Yeezus was good. Yeezus is one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life. Outside of like what he was trying to sell as merch, you know, throw the merch out, you know, because he was like trying to sell like Confederate flags and stuff. I was like, what are you doing? Jesus Christ, what are you doing, dude? Oh. But the show itself
was amazing.
Was great. Yeah. And I would say like Life of Pablo was great. I think My Dark Twisted Fantasy was great. Yeah. I would still say post Mother's death, he's clearly affected, but still making great work.
Yeah.
And then something, I don't know when it was. I'm not in his life. It's not for me to decipher, but God, something,
Yeah.
a light switch flipped, and it's just like, oh no, is he all the way bad? I think he's all the way bad now.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't know when it happened, but it happened. And
Yeah,
I have not been able to unsee it since. I'm like,
it's tough.
like,
Yeah,
you definitely give the
it's tough.
side eye when it comes to him. Like, you know.
Yeah, think about how many people grew up loving Hulk Hogan, like as an American figure, right? And
Yeah.
then the story comes out that he's telling his daughter that he doesn't want her dating any N-words, and you go like, not my Hulk Hogan,
Yeah.
right?
It's so
And
disheartening.
so now you're forced to reconcile how you felt about a person for years for
Yeah.
something they did later in life, and you go, well, how long was that in there? Was that there the whole time? Did something change? Like, if you're like, dude, I had Hulk Hogan T-shirts. Now what do I do? I feel guilty for having had them.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
tough to reconcile stuff like
It
that.
definitely is. But, yet we persevere. So, how did you first get into comedy and what made you stick with it?
Yeah, I'll try to do the most concise summary of it. So basically, when I'm in high school, Chappelle's show is on Comedy Central, and this is when it's peaking.
Hmm.
I've been a fan of Chappelle since I was 6 years old. And I always thought he was the greatest comedian alive. Like, that's just my personal taste. He did two sketches on Chappelle's show that I had almost the exact same idea for. And he was doing punchlines that were almost the exact same punchlines I had thought about in my head. And this was about when I'm 17. And so I just told myself, well, if you're having ideas that are the same as the guy that you think is the best comedian alive, maybe save those ideas. Like, I don't know what you're going to do with them, but maybe keep track of them. Maybe they're valuable in some kind of way. So I got these composite notebooks, and every time I had an idea, I would just write it down in the notebook.
Wow.
Right. And the thought being, maybe later on I'll come back to this and something will be useful, and I'll have a book of ideas. But if nothing more, at least it's a mental exercise and I'm doing it. And over time, by the time I graduated college, I probably had like 9 notebooks, just like full of ideas and premises and thoughts, that kind of stuff. And while I was in college, I went to college for film, and one of my professors was a screenwriting professor, and she just so happened to have been one of the writers for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Total coincidence. And she saw some of my stuff, and she was just like, dude, I think you're really funny. And I remember asking her, I said, do you think doing stand-up would help put me in a position for people to read my scripts? And she went, absolutely. And I was like, so should I try to do stand-up? And she was like, absolutely.
Amazing.
And that led to me giving it a try, like once I graduated. And it's not, there was nothing to say that any of my scripts would be good. And there was nothing to say that I was going to be good at stand up. But clearly, a person who had been there in some capacity saw something in me that made them go, I think you should look deeper into this, dude. And then once I did it, I just got completely addicted. Like, once you get your first real laugh on stage, like a true, like guttural laugh from a crowd, and you're like, I made that. It's such an addicting feeling that it's hard to walk away, which is also my theory about Donald Trump. I think, hear me out, I think he's addicted to the rallies. The rest of it is the byproduct that has to come with. I don't think people understand the high you feel with a massive audience cheering your words on, cheering on your thoughts, cheering on you specifically. That is a high that everyone has not experienced. And so when you look at what he's doing and how irrational some of the actions may be, and what he's doing to try to like stay there and prolong it and all of that, that's a dude chasing a high. You know what I mean? Now the ramifications are so grand that like we don't need to be like empathetic towards that high.
Oh,
We
yeah,
need to be
right.
like, yo, you need to get your shit together.
Correct.
But my you know what I mean? But my point is, on a human level,
Yeah.
I really do think that's something that people aren't considering because I don't think they've ever experienced it, at least not macro. And I'm telling you, it is addicting in a way that nothing else can provide. I would argue, where else is he supposed to supplement that feeling, right? If the presidency is gone, where else can he recreate that feeling? I don't know that an industry exists that can supply him with that sensation. So he's trying to milk it for everything it's worth because he doesn't have another place to get that high. You know what I mean? This isn't like hey, I'm into coke, but I can only afford crack type thing. Like, there is no crack on the market. There's just the coke. You can get coke or nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and we set a time limit on the coke. So he's like, oh, well, what if I try to prolong that time limit? What if I just change the rule?
Right.
That's how I am making sense of his actions.
That's interesting. Never thought of
It's
that
just
way.
something like, listen, I can't prove a thing. All I'm saying is there's something interesting to look at how he carries on at those rallies. Look at how much he's really basking in it. Look at how much he's enjoying it. Look at how much he references it. Look at how much he tries to soak it in.
Yeah.
Why is he so much more into them than any other politician you've ever seen?
Sure.
I'm telling you, this is a guy, dude. He grew up so. You think he's got friends?
No.
Do you think he's got like
To be
true
his
friends, like
friend.
like on a human level?
Yeah, no.
Even if you're on that side of the aisle, I'm not even saying they're bad people. But I'm saying truly as a person,
No.
a guy who has lived his life, does he have a true friend? I don't think he's ever had one.
Me either.
So
Yeah.
so when I look at that, I go, dude, this is the closest thing he has ever felt
Yeah.
to a kinship
Uh-huh.
of sorts. It's the first time he's felt beloved in a way that is different than the ways he's experienced before. I think this dude's never had a friend.
That's a good point.
And I don't necessarily know there was a route for him to. I'm not even going to go so far as to say that was his fault. I'm just saying this is the byproduct of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just think there's something to that. Again, changes nothing. He needs to do a better job.
Absolutely.
I just think it's a way of interpreting him.
He's coping. It's a coping mechanism for him, I guess.
Oh, I
for
totally
not
think so. I
having-
just don't
yeah.
think you should get to cope on this larger scale. You
Right.
know?
I
Yeah.
talked to our
Exactly. Well, why are we dealing with your coping? Is
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
definitely an interesting position.
That is interesting. Okay, never thought of that way, but you know, he said as to get any empathy, but whatever.
I'm not giving him any
Yeah.
empathy, but I'm just trying to make sense of it. Kanye is also not getting my empathy. I'm just trying to make sense of it. But I do think that's one of the interesting things within the dialogue of comedy right now, right? Is the idea of, so what I just said about Trump can be misinterpreted as being supportive of Trump.
Right.
When I'm not at all.
Oh, right.
I'm just willing to have a conversation about it. I still know where I stand on the issue, but I am willing to go like, well, how does this happen? How do we get here? What do you think about this? Like, there's nothing wrong with being willing to discuss and just kind of put brains together and just go, what do you think? Like, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just, this is kind of like what I'm speculating at the moment.
There's definitely something human that, you know, there's a human element to it that you're like, you know, it's got to be, maybe it's deeper. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
especially like we grew up on movies and TV shows, narratives, right? And the thing that would make a character great is understanding their motivations and their backstory. It's not just that they want to do this, it's understanding why they want to do it. Because then you could understand what would compel them to take it to these lengths, right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's no different when you look at somebody like him. It's like part of it is you're just so curious, like what really is motivating you to take things to these lengths, dude? Like it's so wild. And that's the part where I go, like, whether you side with him or not, I would venture a bet you'd want to know the answer.
Yeah.
And that's more where I'm at, where I'm just like, at the very least, I want to know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And for all of us that are just like Kanye's out of his mind, we still want to know the answer.
Right. Yeah, right.
You know?
Exactly. That's hilarious. Okay. All right, so was there a specific moment when you realized comedy could be more than just laughs? Like that it could say something deeper? Like was there a moment that clicked?
Yes, in a way, right? So this is the way I would kind of answer that is, can I cite a specific moment? No, but I can cite a specific realization of a feeling.
Okay.
My favorite comedy, and again, comedy is subjective. I'll never tell somebody to like something and dislike it. You like whatever you want to like. I'm cool with that, right? My perspective was always comedy should do two things. If you are good in my eyes, it should push a boundary, and I should be smarter after having heard it, right? So my thing is every show I've ever seen in stand up, like even bad comics, at some level, it's still funny. I get that it's funny. Being funny is not the hard part. Anybody can be funny. I'll be funny for hours. That's not the hard part, right? I think the hard part is having someone listen to your funny and leave feeling smarter or more evolved or more insightful or just some form of better than when they came in. And I don't mean emotionally. I mean like that you upgraded as a person. I am somehow smarter for having listened to you.
Wow.
If you can make somebody feel that, that is great comedy to me.
Okay.
So those are the Chappelles. Those are the Carlins. Those are the Patrice O'Neills. Those are the Bill Burrs. Those are the Jim Jeffries. Those are the Chris Rocks. Those are the John Mulaney's, right? Like the list goes on and on. Those are the Tammy Pescatellis and the Kathleen Madigans, right? Like there are plenty of really good comedians out there who will have you going home feeling like you have some variation of a superpower. You somehow feel a little bit stronger than you were when you went in there. And then there are other comics who are really funny, but you won't leave with that. You just go, that was funny. and you just go on about your life.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But if I'm ranking them, I think that is a tier below what I'm talking about. Like if you could be funny, pointed, and somehow empower the people you're talking to, that is so much more impressive to me. Like if it were a magic trick, that's what makes me go, okay, that was special. That was really cool. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah, like for me, it was always that realization of if you can make people feel smarter when they left,
Yeah.
that was the point of doing good comedy.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that. I never thought of that, but I actually do
Mhm.
agree with that. Funny is cool. I mean, that's good. And that, who doesn't want to escape and laugh? And you know what I mean? Like, as a consumer of comedy, you love comedy because you want to laugh. But if it can change you in a way, I think that that's so much more impactful. So I do agree with that. Never thought of that, but
Yeah.
I love that though. Because
But
Dave Chappelle
but
is
devil's
famous for that.
advocate,
And I love Dave Chappelle. Personally,
1000%.
he's in my top three for sure. Matter of fact, he might,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely my top three for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to each their own. But like to be fair,
Yeah.
that is based on how I was introduced to comedy, right? So that's my litmus for good comedy.
Mm-hmm.
But other people were introduced to comedy in different ways, right? And so their litmus for what makes good comedy can be totally different.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people, they don't want to think.
Yeah.
Their thing is they want to come here, laugh, keep it simple, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
They
Disconnect.
don't want you
They
to
want
get
to
political.
disconnect.
They
Yeah.
don't want you to do social. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so, and it's not my place to tell them they're wrong either. Like you're getting out of it what you're seeking to get out of it, and there are comics for that as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying the thing that I like the most. But when all of those comics are in the same room, I will tell you the ones who I'm the most impressed by are the ones I'm talking about. You know?
Yeah.
So you put them all, you can say, hey, you're all equally funny, but you're funny in a way that that crowd's smarter now leaving. And you're funny in a way where like, they're not even going to remember your jokes, but they'll just remember you were funny. To me, these people over here, this guy was better, you know?
Yeah, holds more weight. I love that. Okay. So how has your approach to writing or performing, how has that changed over time, personally or because of what's happening in the world? How has that shifted?
Yeah, I think I was talking about this with a buddy of mine the other day. I have one of my best friends, he doesn't do comedy anymore, but we started around the same time and he's Indian.
Okay.
And we were working the same club that we first got in and we're doing hosting gigs and we're getting the bulk of the work at the club as hosts at the time. And we were talking today about like, why do you think that was? Like, why do you think we were getting it and none of the other people now that we're like over a decade removed from that?
Yeah.
And I think because our jokes were so unpolarizing that they were fit for anyone, especially to start a show, right? And that's the safest way to start the show. It's like if the host is coming out first, the last thing you want him to create is divisiveness.
Correct.
Even though divisiveness can be a tool to cause entertainment, right?
Yeah.
Maybe in theory, you don't want to start a show with that. You want to get some momentum going that everybody's on board and leave it to the comics who are more skilled that are coming up later on to kind of decipher how to play with that more. Maybe don't open the show on it.
Right.
And I think that was it. And I kind of came to this hypothesis. I don't know that it's true because I'm sure there's special case scenarios, but at least where I grew up, the format for a comedy club to conduct a show was yes, we will have a show, but there will be a 2 item minimum. So you'll pay for your tickets to the show, and then you're going to have to pay for 2 items while you're there at the club because a club is a glorified bar and they got to make bar sales in order to keep the lights on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that eliminates a part of the population from a money standpoint. So now the people who are showing up in theory are people who have enough money to afford tickets plus 2 items each.
Okay.
Let's say you're a married couple, right? So now I got to afford 2 tickets for whatever this act is. Maybe that's $40 a ticket. So I've already spent $80. Then I also have to get 2 items for each of us, right? So let's kick that up to say $120. Plus, since we're a couple and we're looking for a date night, we may have kids at home, right? So maybe we paid for a babysitter for the night too. Throw on another $120, right? So now, in order to come watch the show, we're somebody who just has $240 to throw away for a 90-minute experience, right? And when you think about that, that can really inform what financial class of people are showing up to these shows. And when you look at that, that will affect what kinds of topics you can talk about that they may or may not relate to more.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're going to a free show, that's going to bring in a different kind of clientele. If you're going to a show that doesn't designate that you spend more money when you get there, that's going to bring in a different clientele. And you'll notice a different norm with what you can talk about and get away with and how much leeway that crowd is willing to give you or not give you because of the circumstance, right? And what I think my theory is comedy clubs, with the exception of specific acts, typically draw conservative fans. Like if we're talking about voters.
Okay.
I think typically you're drawing conservative fans and some liberal fans will be mixed in there. But like if you take the ratio, I think it's going to lean conservative. Now, again, I'm thinking about this relative to Tampa, where I came up.
Okay.
Like every city is different, but I would also argue every metropolis leans liberal. So it's one of those things where like I'm still saying the conservative people will come out because I think they're a little more willing to laugh at something that's crass, to laugh at something that may cross a line. I think that's kind of the disposition or the stereotype at times
Yeah.
that like liberals may be a little too sensitive to a joke, right? And I think that is flip flopped over time. I think there have been times where conservatives were too much and then liberals were too much, right? And so I think that's a pendulum that swings back and forth.
Uh-huh.
But I do think there's something to this idea of that's why they say don't talk politics. That's why they say don't talk social issues, right? Or if you're going to talk social issues, you have to do it in the most endearing way ever. Like you can only talk as the victim. You can't talk as the aggressor in a circumstance, or you'll be perceived badly as opposed to that's another perspective,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And there's this thing to they say like never punch down, punch up, right? Because if you're punching up, they can take it. But if you're punching down, now you're bullying of sorts, right? But what happens when someone in within that system of tiering, someone who is beneath you
Right.
does something that warrants comedy? How am I to address it and still keep the empathy, right?
Yeah.
What if a homeless person does me wrong? Why wouldn't I be able to address that?
Absolutely.
I tried to give a homeless guy a pair of Jordans once. You know what he told me? He said, I don't wear black, and he gave them back. And to me, that hurt my feelings because I got you a pair of Jordans, and you're telling me your sense of fashion matters more than my willingness to look out for you.
Oh my.
I'm offended and I want to criticize you.
Oh, yeah.
But people are going to go, don't make fun of homeless people. And I'm like, I'm not making fun of homeless people. I'm making fun of this asshole.
Yeah.
I'm talking about this one guy. So I do think there's something to that where the types of people who come inform what you can get away with talking about. And I do think like we're talking in averages here. I do think a lot of liberals which is what I identify as, to be clear, but I think a lot of liberals are liberal because they tend to be more empathetic people. And it's easier to find yourself aligning with the bulk of values of liberals as an empath, right?
Yeah.
If you are more financially driven or more cutthroat, it's easier to find yourself siding with conservatives.
Oh.
Now, I'm not suggesting either is better than the other. I'm just suggesting that they all exist. And when when the proposition is placed in front of you, that would help make sense out of why you lean which way or the other, right? And so think about this. If you are less of an empath, it is easier for you to laugh at the butt of a joke. Every joke has a butt, right?
Yeah.
If you don't care that there's a butt of any joke, you can laugh at almost any joke. That tends to be the people who lack in empathy. So there's this weird cross section of accountability where like you can be a liberal and that's great and fine. And you can be an empath, but to a degree, you have to understand if you are in this place of jokes, everyone's got to get it.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to get it in their direction. Right. And so you can't go like, wait. Not there, though. It's all. Everything is game here. Right. And the real penalty is laugh or don't. But you don't got to take it further than that. Right. I promise you, talking in silence is painful enough. Like you don't have to rally afterwards. Like that guy will remember that you were quiet as shit when he said that. He'll be like, OK, not saying that again. Jesus Christ. And like that is enough of a penalty.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I just think there is something to that when you consider the financial classes of people that are entering a comedy club that will inform the type of comedy that may perform better in that place. That's not even to say that's going to be better nationally or on TV or on these larger scales, but it's to say in that circumstance, that can inform why this may play better here than this would play, right? I've seen comics come from Austin, right, which is essentially just become like the Joe Rogan scene, right? And there are great comics out there, and there are terrible comics out there. But I've seen a couple come from Austin, come do shows in LA, and just eat the biggest bag of dicks, like just some of the most glorious bombing I've ever seen, because they're realizing what they're saying is more racist than it is clever.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so the idea is like, I don't mind a racist joke. I'm here for jokes, right?
Right.
But the joke better be better than it is racist.
Yeah.
Like if we're making like a pie chart, more of the pie better be full of funny than racist.
For sure.
Right? That's what I am asking. And what a lot of them are learning is that they're saying something that is more fucked up than it is clever. Now, in a safe space to do that, you wouldn't notice that that doesn't actually work nationally, right? But then when you take it on the road, then you'll learn the real perception of it. And that's kind of like my litmus for judging comics that I work with and peers and things like that, right? Where I will judge your act and I'll go, can you travel with it? Because I go, like, if you're just funny in this region, that doesn't mean anything.
Oh, yeah.
And again, to each their own, but it just doesn't mean anything to me because I'm going, all right, but the thing I'm doing, I can do here, but I can also go to Des Moines, right? And then I could go to Connecticut, and then I could go to New York City, and then I could go to Texas. I could do this exact same act, and I can stand on those bits.
Oh, yeah.
But you're gonna have to change, or you're gonna have to suffer.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
So there's a value to that.
That
And so
definitely
I
is.
think you can tell when people like they're in places where I can tell the kind of crowds you're doing more than the crowds you're not doing. Because you would know why that's not gonna fly.
Oh, yeah.
Like you would know that's not a thing to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think so anyway. I would think you should know what
You would hope,
Yeah,
right?
right.
You would hope.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like
It's just
listen, there are
doesn't.
way more unsuccessful comics than there are successful comics. And you would think the unsuccessful ones would go, oh, there's a reason why those successful ones are succeeding.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
I should learn from that.
yeah. Let me take notes. Pull out my notebook.
For sure.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so do you ever feel a tension between saying what you need to say and keeping it palatable for different
Yeah,
audiences? Like we were just talking about.
1000%. Yeah, yeah. If you watch my new special, that's
Yeah.
one of the big things I speak about is this idea of like I am a black man, but I am also a comedian. And those two things don't always align on every issue. Sometimes something comes up and I can't totally tell how to speak to it because my job is to be funny. And I know the funny thing here. It's just the funny thing here might also be kind of uncomfortable to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's the best way to communicate that, right? And it's definitely a difficult thing to navigate, and everybody has their different ways of going about it. I think the most important thing you can do with a circumstance like that is to definitely establish why empathy should live there so that people can understand your position as you say it.
Okay.
If I understand who you are as you have to say this thing, it makes it a lot easier for me to accept what you were saying, as opposed to you say a mystery, you just say it cold, and now I have to like wonder who you are. Like, are you this kind of person? Or are you this kind of person? Like, what are we trying to say here, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I'll give you an example. So, like in the special, I talk about this guy who was on a season of Big Brother, and he got in trouble because he called another contestant the N word live on air, right? And it was a difficult thing for me as a black comedian because the black person in me was infuriated. But then the comedian in me saw the clip and thought, okay, that was actually funnier than I expected it to be. And now I don't know. How do I?
I'm conflicted.
I didn't
Is it
expect
funny?
it to be really funny when I
Right.
saw it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when you see how it happened, you go, okay, that's not how I pictured him doing it. That is actually pretty funny. And so I'm not defending him saying it, but I
Yeah.
am defending the fact that there is a humor to how this went down, you guys. And I think that can be addressed.
Absolutely.
You know, so there are things like that where it's tough to navigate. But if I can, I believe the point is if I can address that I need you to be aware of the position it puts me in to say this. As a black person, I am upset about this.
Absolutely.
As a comedian, I also can see the humor in this. I'm acknowledging that before I tell the joke. I could just tell the joke, but then you don't know where I stand on it.
True.
And that can inform how much you want to laugh about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if I believe your heart is in the right place, I will let you get away with saying worse things. If I do not believe your heart is in the right place, I might not let you get away with saying the most minuscule of bad things because I'm like, you're a bad person.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not supporting a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a line.
So
There's definitely a line.
There is something to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's that argument of just like what white people are allowed to say the N word. Like that argument where like, you'll meet that white guy who you don't know any of his black friends, but he'll swear that his black friends said, no, they said I could say it. They know I'm cool. And I go like, well, we don't know them. So
Not acceptable.
I am
here.
waiting to see what they saw.
Exactly.
You know?
True, but it's never okay for them to. I don't care. I don't care what your friends said.
I'll tell you this.
Don't bring it here.
I'm more on the. I can appreciate that, and that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
I have at this point taken it to, and consider it, I am a 6'3" black man. I'm in shape. Like I'm down to scrap with whoever. I don't give a shit.
Right.
So I'm a little more prone to like, I'll accept the conflict. That's fine. So what I would say is universally, like as a generalized rule, yeah, the idea is like no one else should be saying it, right?
Correct.
But what I will say is I'm not in a place where you can use any word that is going to have that level of power over me. I'm not going to let that word affect me like that. I can still see your intent and I can still treat you accordingly, but you're not going to make me lose control because you choose to use a word. Your words don't have that kind of power over my actions, right?
I love that.
So it's one of those things, but like for me, that's just like wisdom with time, where I go like, listen, man, I grew up playing sports. I grew up being taught people are going to trash talk you. They're going to try to get under your skin. And when they get under your skin, they've got you because you don't have the focus that you need to succeed, right? And I think that word in our culture functions that same way, right? I think the bulk of the time, and I'm talking like 95%, the bulk of the time, white people or anyone else try to use that word, the intent is to try to harm you because they don't know what else to do to harm you, right? 5% of the time is they thought they were doing something else and it got misinterpreted and you're like, hey man, let's be better. Like,
yeah.
but I'll give you a 5% cushion of like, I think you made a mistake, my guy. I think I'm gonna give you another shot here. But 95% of the time I'm like, all right, dude, I see what's going on here. And I just think there is something to not giving them the power. Like I do this bit in my first special where the premise is, did you know no one can insult you if they're not sure that you understand that was an insult? And the point is, if I don't showcase that I understand you were trying to hurt me, how could you ever get the pleasure of having hurt me? I'm clearly not hurt. I don't even know that you tried to hurt me. Like you don't even get that satisfaction.
Yeah.
Some guy could call me a jungle monkey and I could be like, tomato, tomato. Like how do you argue that guy? How do you argue with that person?
Absolutely.
And so my point is, it's not necessarily like, I would say like as black culture, like I think we would want a firmer stance against the thing, but that's because that's emotional. That's the visceral reaction, right? But I think it's a psychological war.
Yeah.
So you don't beat a psychological problem with a visceral reaction. You beat psychology with psychology, right? And so my whole thing is just, all right, man, well, you're not going to get me to that place. So now what you got?
Love that.
That was your big swing, man. If that's all you got, you're in trouble. Everybody's had that nightmare where like you try to hit somebody and you can't hit them with any power at all. And then you have that moment of realization of like, oh no, but that was everything I had. What do I do now? Like I want them to feel that.
Wow.
I want them to feel that.
That's a word right
so
there. Yeah, that's a word.
There's something to it.
I love that.
There's something to it.
Yeah, I agree.
And no one's perfect, but in my head, that's all. Anytime somebody comes at me with racism, it's just one of those where like the last thing you want to do is show that you're affected in any kind of way.
Give them the reaction that they're looking for.
Yeah, like they're just voyeurs in terms of that. Right? And you go like, well, I'm not. No. I won't give it to you.
I agree with that. You won't get my joy. You won't get the satisfaction of stealing my joy.
Bro, I'm winning, man. I'm winning. And the fact that you had to say that shows me I'm winning. I ain't tripping over that at all. You know, life is much bigger than that.
Amen to that. Okay, so what part of your creative work feels most like home to you? Writing, performing, or conceptualizing?
I like conceptualizing the best.
I knew you were going to say
for sure,
that.
conceptualizing. Yeah, because conceptualizing is now you're getting into it, the experiment of it, right? Now you're getting into like, I have a theory. Like writing is just formulating how to say the theory. Performing is testing the theory, right? But conceptualizing the theory is where the excitement lies, because that's where like the birth of the ideas. And you're like, oh, I gotta figure this. Okay. So if this is that. Okay, no, I think I'm getting it. Like, so that's the part where like I think you get giddy in terms of trying to figure it out, you know? Like I got this theory that I know how to solve zombies, you know? And I've had this for years. I think I know the cure for zombies. I'm not even embarrassed of it. I got the cure.
What's the cure?
The cure is you bite them first. Never done it. No one's ever done it. Here's my theory, right? Zombie bites another zombie.
Okay.
Can't turn more zombie. Zombie bites a human, you turn into a zombie. Human bites a human, still a human. Human bites a zombie. You don't know. You don't know. You've never, you don't know that we don't have the same power against them. I'll tell you right now, if the zombies come tomorrow, first thing I'm doing, I'm getting out the hot sauce, I'm putting on a bib, and I'm taking a fucking chunk. Listen, I'm either dying epically or I'm a fucking hero. Either way, you're gonna be like, yo, JB was real.
Adverse effect. Like, what if it's not? What if it doesn't?
Then we're in the same place we started. Then we're in the same place we started. We're like, what are we doing? But I'm here to be great or get out of here. That's it. That's it. You think I want to live in zombie world? No, I'm trying to make a difference.
Oh my
That's
God.
what I'm doing. But I do think I'm onto something in that. And look, if I'm wrong, I can live with being wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with accepting that you were wrong about something. What I'm saying is I was willing to do something. The whole time I'm watching The Walking Dead, all they ever try to do is survive. Fuck
I
that.
love that show.
Dog, they killed your wife.
Yeah, right.
Fight back.
Fight back. Absolutely.
Imagine learning you could have saved your wife the whole time. It was just like, yeah, just nibble on her, man. That was it. You're like, what? You're like, yeah, I lost my son too. Yeah, all you had to do was bite him, dude. He would have been fine. It's like the flu, dude.
Do you watch the spinoffs too? Have you watched all the spinoffs and
No,
stuff?
no. I don't enjoy it. I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
So I was watching The Walking Dead, and then I reach a point. I got this theory about everyone who watches The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Almost no one finishes it. So the conversation becomes, hey, when did you leave? And that becomes the more interesting dialogue about the show of like, hey, when did you reach the point where you had enough? And because at a certain point, I think you realize there's no end game to the show. And because there's no end game, what am I even rooting for? Like to me, a zombie premise only works if you can find a cure. The minute you stop believing a cure can exist, if there isn't like some kind of form of coexistence, this is a plot going nowhere. You're just showing me how bad things got. And I go, why would I want to just see that? I want to believe there's a way out.
There's hope. Yeah, I want to believe.
Yeah. Once you take the hope away, I go like, well, I want to be here. What are we doing? So
Well,
this
I
makes
have
no
to say,
sense.
I watched all 11 seasons. I haven't really
Yeah,
kept
yeah.
up with the
But what I'm
spinoffs.
saying is you're the minority.
Yeah.
You are for sure the minority. I'll show you so many people who watch that show and they don't even know it went 11 seasons. Dude, I was out by season, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5.
What?
Like,
Wow.
I was out super early. Like, first off, when you killed Shane, I was like, all right, I got a problem with everything you're doing right now. Because John Barenthal's character was so good.
Yeah.
But by the time they got to the governor, when the governor kills the whole town, I went, okay, cool. Never coming back.
It was definitely
And
got out of hand. It definitely got out of hand.
I
for
just
sure.
never came back. Yeah, I just went, not for me.
Reaching
Not
after
for
a
me.
while.
Yeah.
Like it was a
Because at a certain point, I go, oh, I get what's going on. You don't want me to feel good. That's what you're doing. Okay, my bad. This whole time, I thought you were setting me up to feel good.
Yeah.
No, you're trying to hurt me. All right, I'm not playing this game.
Oh, hilarious. That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so zombies. So we'll remember that. If there's a zombie apocalypse in the future, you know.
You know where to find me.
Know where to find you. Okay, great.
You know stuff. You know what I'm doing.
Okay.
You'll ask a simple question. You go, hey, is JB still around? If the answer is no, you know how I went out. If you hear, hey, we found a cure, you know who did it.
Oh.
Either way, dude. I'm either a Hiroshima pilot or y'all know the George Washington Carver. I either made the dopest invention ever or I went out in glory. But I did one of the two.
We're keeping hope alive that you're gonna find the cure. You're gonna find the cure. Okay, so in your latest special, you said something that I find very significant. We are better together than apart. So how do you see that playing out today? And especially in a world that feels so divided.
Yeah, I just think I'm just playing to the sentiment of like, I have been in experiences where someone who was, no matter how you draw the lines, they were on the other side of whatever that line is that you drew.
Yeah.
And we have had moments where because we were willing to look past that line and use each other for whatever it is we were trying to get to, we found that the thing we got to was better than if we were trying to get there separately. Right? And I just find that to be so much easier and so much more endearing and so much less threatening than the other option, that I don't see the point of the other option. I don't see the point. Your life is so finite. I do not see the point in wasting it, hating people, or trying to actively be in the way of someone else's happiness. You know? Like a quote I always like to give is, I am not threatened by your happiness.
Yeah.
It's not a threat to me. So long as it's not a threat to me. Right? It has to literally be a threat to me for me to be like, okay, well, that is a problem. And we can't have that. You know what I mean? You know, you want to take my house? Well, I don't like that makes you happy. We're going to not support that.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
But generally speaking, I go, listen, man, I don't want to be in the way of your happiness.
Yeah.
Whatever you find that makes you happy as a person, seek that out, dude. Seek that out. But don't do it at the expense of someone else's happiness.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I understand that it's easier said than done, but I think it's a sentiment that can be appreciated if you allow it to. But it's also like, It's high moral character. And that's a type of person. Not everybody's brave enough to stand on their laurels, or to not stand on their laurels, but to stand on their morals, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yep.
Not everybody's willing to look at an easy road in the face and go, yeah, but it's not the right road.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that may get me where I want, but at what cost? When there is this other way, it is longer, but more benefit by doing it that way. I may have to be a slightly more patient, but ultimately where we end up, it's less controversial than how we would have got there before.
Absolutely.
And I just like the concept of giving into that. I also grew up playing team sports. And team sports ask that of you when you're succeeding. And the teams that aren't succeeding tend to struggle with that thing, right? There's a real world where just because you're the leading scorer in the nation doesn't make you the best scorer in the nation.
Yeah.
That can be circumstance. That can be, well, you're on a team where no one else can do anything, therefore you have to. As opposed to, here's another guy who actually could do more than you could do in that circumstance, but he has prioritized winning and prioritized his teammates and executing in a certain way. And that is why they're finding themselves deep in the playoffs and in a championship game. And that's why you were at home watching this whole thing happen, going, yeah, but if that was me, I would have blah, 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 blah. Well, it's not you because you don't do that.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
I just think there's a value to that. And to each their own, like people can say I'm being like hippy dippy. Like, I don't care. But it's one of those things where this is kind of the way I look at things, where I think I'll use liberals as an example. I think liberals are framed as soft as opposed to empathetic. And those are two drastically different things. And I think it's a cop out to call someone liberal soft. I'm not soft. I'll fuck you up. I just care how fucked up you got.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I also want you to get the medical treatment you're gonna need for how bad I just fucked you up.
Exactly.
So it's I think there's a misconception about this idea of being empathetic towards people. I think empaths just understand that there is a value there.
Yeah.
And we just don't want that value to be overlooked. Like, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And we're the ones seeing it going, hey, just so you know, this matters more than you think. You're gonna want to like keep that in mind.
Exactly.
Right. And then the people who aren't into it are going like, nah, that shit don't matter. And it's because they don't have the foresight or the perspective or the experience to pull from that helps them understand the value. Or they're sociopaths and they understand and they just don't care. You know what I mean? I don't, who am I to call people what? But I think that's just where I'm coming from on that. Like, I'm so much more interested in figuring out how to befriend a person than figuring out how to hate a person, because the feeling of being with a person that you've befriended is so much better than the feeling of hating somebody. Like, it just is. Like,
Takes too much
sincerely, like,
energy. First of all, it's just too much energy.
dude, I don't have time.
I don't
Yeah,
have
dude, come
time
on. I'm
or
getting
energy
older.
to hate you.
Dog, I need 3 naps a day. I'm not trying to do extra shit to get me tired. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to, I want to see you and be like, hey, I don't want to be like, hey, it's the very different A's,
Please.
you know?
100% concur. Okay, so what does that unity actually look like in real life?
Yeah.
How do we start making that shift today, day to day, or person to person? What does that look like to you?
I saw a podcast once where this guy was talking about how to pursue happiness correctly.
Okay.
And one of the things he said was to practice gratitude. And I really liked that because the concept was it requires perspective. First off, in order to achieve happiness, you need to experience bad things because they help give you perspective on how good the good things are. But then if you practice gratitude regularly, you will actually naturally create momentum that helps you realize how much is already going in your favor. Right? If I wake up this morning and I go, hey, you know what? I'm making more money today than I've ever made previously. I have a better car than I ever drove. I have a better living situation than I've ever had. I used to have to do this for food. Now I do this for food. I used to eat this regularly. Now I get to eat this regularly, right? This is all stuff I can do. I can say all these things to myself before I get out of bed. Before I actually started the day, I can rack off the list of how many things are better about my life now than they were at another time. And that alone helps me start building the concept of how good things are going for me and how much I have already earned and how much I have already won. So that now I'm starting the day with that mojo. I'm like, yeah, man, let's just add to it. Let's just add to it, right? If something bad happens, that's okay because it's still being offset by all the good I've established. And there's still plenty more good I haven't even established that I could if I want to make a longer list. The point is, it's about creating the good vibes for you to live in so that you've got that positive momentum throughout the day or the hour or the minute or whatever kind of increment you want to go through. But that helps you perform in the spaces that you want to perform in, right?
Yeah.
So I think it starts there. You've got to practice gratitude. And I think the more you realize what you're grateful for, you will realize how much the people who you feel like are opposing you don't matter. Like the thing that y'all have a hatred for with each other, it really doesn't matter in this grand scheme of like what actually brings you your day to day happiness.
Yeah.
So be grateful for the day to day happiness and navigate the other things with the level of importance that they have, which is not as high as you are implying. So, like, stop responding to these things like they have this grandeur when they really on your day to day don't. It's not to say nothing does, but it's to say, I think a lot of the stuff people give their energy doesn't deserve that much of their energy. It's just that I'm not saying ignore it, but I'm saying attack it accordingly. If
Absolutely.
it doesn't bring you a true joy to attack it in that way, maybe you're going too hard at it and like find your threshold, right?
Absolutely.
A little adds up to a lot. Maybe it's your job to only do this much towards that thing. And then the other people, they got to do their little bit. And those little bits add up to a lot. But maybe you're trying to haul too much up the hill, and that's unhealthy for you. And then when you see people not doing as much as you or people opposing you, now the hatred that you have is far more fiery because you know how much you have done. And now you are giving it too much of your energy,
Yeah.
you know?
One thing you
So I
can't
just
do,
think it's
you
about
can't control
perspective.
nobody. One thing you can't do is control someone else, their perspective, their
You can't do it.
actions, or anything. You control self. And the older I get, I promise, I'm just like, my tolerance for things that small, like other people's stuff. Like I don't have the capacity. I don't have the bandwidth. Like I am too
Yeah.
busy trying to keep and secure my joy and what makes me happy and focusing on me. I just don't have the
And you
bandwidth.
know
You know what I mean?
what's the byproduct of that as well? Like when you are a joyous person
Yeah.
and you seem unaffected by the things that seem like they're affecting so many others, like when you look like the kind of person who is still finding joy in life, people become envious of you.
Yeah.
They want to be like you. They want to be around you. They want to figure out how to create that feeling that you seem to be living with, right? And my thing is like, why be the person who wants as opposed to the person who is? You can choose to be that person. It's about you choosing to enjoy your life the way that you can. You're not getting any younger. None of us are.
Nope.
This is the youngest you'll ever be for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So why aren't we capitalizing on that before it's too late, right?
Yeah.
I worry that saying things like this will discourage people when I'm really just trying to empower you to transfer that energy elsewhere. I
Yeah.
think it'll still be beneficial, but I don't want people to go like things aren't worth fighting for. I'm just saying, what is the method of fighting? That's all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
And
Things still need to be
some
done.
things aren't worth fighting for.
Some things are just not.
Sometimes
It's just not.
it's just not worth the fight. I mean, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But so you have
And
to
as
figure out
Americans, I would say
what that is and what the worth
totally,
is. Yeah, what the worth is.
totally. I was going to say, just like as Americans, I think we're in a particularly unique circumstance relative to the rest of the world because this country is a melting pot.
Yeah.
And so it is based in the idea of so many different cultures and beliefs and lifestyles having to coexist.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't accept the fact that that is the identity of this country, is that it is a melting pot, you'll never comprehend how you have to have gives and takes
Yeah.
and that this is the country of coexistence. For as good or as bad as we have executed it,
Yeah.
it is the go to country for the example of coexistence, right? And so if we embrace that, then we have to understand that there are going to be people that I don't understand
Yeah.
that are living next to me, that are working the job with me, that votes count the same as I do, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I have to understand that that is the country that I live in.
Woo.
So if we want the country to stay strong, maybe embrace the foundation of that country as opposed to going, no, I don't think it should be that. I know we've been doing it for hundreds of years and that's what the whole premise was. But like maybe let's just, because I don't want to, instead of me leaving, why don't the rest of you change? It's like such an insane, like such a sociopathic stance to take of just like, the country should change because I don't like
Exactly.
what it is. I don't like it. And I clearly would know all the things. So, do my thing.
Do what I say do.
Okay. All right,
Right.
man.
Let's see
All
how
right.
that, let's see how
Well,
that
I'm gonna
works
go to
out
the
for you.
beach. You have fun arguing that, dude.
Right.
I'm about to I'm about to go play catch with my son. Excuse me.
Absolutely. 100%. Okay, so do you think comedy still has the power to bridge gaps, or are those bridges getting harder to build?
No, I think it absolutely does. I think humor is the biggest wall barrier breaker.
Okay.
Like, I think finding something to laugh about is the thing that can endear you the most with somebody. No one wants to avoid being with the people who make them laugh.
Mhm.
Like, that's absurd to be
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't be around him. I'm too happy when I'm
Right.
there. Like, that's no one's saying that, you know?
Yeah.
So I do think finding a middle ground to laugh about can create bonding, which is also why you hear so many people who come from the military just not give a fuck about race, because they've been put in like such dire circumstances where something like that just couldn't matter. They all of a sudden now you're just a person and you either got my back or you don't.
Right.
Right. But it ain't about like racial where you came from. Like where you came from is just your name. You know,
Right.
that's like every war movie. It's just like, hey, come on, Texas. You know, and his name is like Chuck, but he's to them he's Texas, you know.
Right.
But I do believe it. Now, is it harder to bridge certain gaps?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to come closer to somebody else, they're the ones with the power to do it. I don't got the power to
Yeah.
sway you. I feel like I have the power to make a case, but you're the one ultimately making the decision. I just think if you're a good person or not, that showcases in your decision,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely.
I think it's easier to tell when someone is attacking you versus you are making it a situation. And I think not in all, I don't want to blanket statement it because every individual is an individual, right? And their words are their words, right? But I do think a lot of the time, comedy interpretation is too strict. I think a lot of the time, people think the comic thought something through more than they did. I think a lot of the time, people don't understand that whichever comic is saying whatever thought, suggestion, whatever about something that exists, that there's no way for that comic to understand it from every perspective
Right.
because they haven't experienced every perspective. They may not know that something exists until you bring it to them. So you may attack a comic for something they say, and they may have said it without any knowledge whatsoever of the thing that you're mad about. And that now that you have brought that to them, that may change their mind or rework how they would try to word something.
Yeah.
You don't know what they knew before they wrote it
Very
and
true.
before they said it. So it's one of those things, you're only as smart as the information in front of you. Based on the information that person had in front of them, that's the conclusion they came to in that moment, right? And when I think of stuff like that, I'm a little less offended from comedy, right? Like, I'm not saying this works in every department, but from the sake of comedy, I'm far more forgiving
Right.
when someone says some wild shit. Because again, I've been on stage and I know what the worst penalty for telling a bad joke is, and it's total silence. I cannot stress that enough. It is so painful, you guys. If you want to hurt a comic, don't laugh and just stare at him. It'll hurt so much more than anything else you could do. And so, yeah, I just do think there is something to that relative to
Yeah.
bridging gaps with the comedy. I think more cases than not, comedy is the absolute way to bring people together. It is the number one thing you could do outside of a dire circumstance that forces the bonding. And that being something like war, right? Just war will force you to overlook prejudices you have because there's a bigger issue.
Yeah.
But comedy is the safest way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Next week, we flip the script, literally. Part 2 is a whole different energy. We still talk comedy, but let's just say things got real unfiltered. You don't want to miss it.